Gentlemen, I thank you for coming at short notice. As President of the Law Society, I felt it's incumbent upon myself to issue a statement on the current JSC elections of the male representative. Now, when I took the oath of office in March 2018, I swore to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law. And that oath was similarly taken by my fellow council members. Last year, we sent out requests for persons interested in the elections of the male representative, and we set out what the requirements in an electoral code of conduct that was approved by the general membership of the society. We received 5 applicants, and out of those 5, 2 had submitted a court order, or rather, out of the 2, 1 got a court order. That's Professor Ojienda, regarding the KRA certificate, and another candidate, Irungu, did not submit any documents. We constituted an independent committee comprising of the IEBC, 3 senior counsel, and the secretariat to vet the candidates. We received that report on the 11th of February, and at the council meeting, after intense deliberation, my council by a majority decided not to carry out any vetting exercise, despite my stern warning that the position of the JSC is that of a state officer, and the Constitution and the various laws must be obeyed in terms of the vetting. So what happened thereafter was that in the absence of any vetting, the 5 candidates, one of whom was not compliant in any way whatsoever, were all cleared. This led to the list that was circulated to the membership, clearing all the candidates. Since the list was released, the Law Society has received several complaints from the members, in a nutshell, that the due process of the law must be obeyed and the rules of the game should not be changed midway. There has also been an online petition requesting the Law Society Council to review its decision and uphold constitutionalism and the rule of law. That petition, as we speak, has over 350 colleagues and members of the public, I presume, who have implored us to reconsider this decision. Now, I have taken this step as President of the Law Society to convene an emergency Law Society Council meeting on Monday at 11 a.m. And I have also requested the senior council convener to provide 3 senior counsels to give us guidance on the matter on account of the sensitive nature. On Monday, the council will deliberate and consider all the 5 candidates who should be vetted in accordance with the Constitution, the applicable laws, and the Law Society Electoral Code of Conduct. This is to maintain our solemn oath to the Constitution and the rule of law. Section 4 of the Law Society of Kenya Act enjoins us to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law. And this is something that's dear to me, and I shall, as long as I'm president, uphold those principles. For if I do not do so, I have no moral authority whatsoever to preach water and drink wine. I cannot talk about corruption, and yet we cannot adhere to the basic tenets of democracy. It is for this reason that the council will be asked to review its decision on Monday, and in accordance with the Constitution, because under Article 253, it's very clear that the JSC nominee must be appointed in accordance with the constitutional and applicable laws. It is a mandatory requirement. The JSC is one of the independent offices recognized by Chapter 15 of the Constitution. Now, we're doing this for due process to be followed. Because can you imagine if one of the candidates who is absolutely not compliant wins the election, there'll be a constitutional crisis because we will have to go back to the drawing board and repeat the exercise. And to ensure that we uphold the principle of constitutionalism, it is my solemn duty and vow to the members of the Law Society that we shall ensure that the vetting process that will take place on Monday shall be strictly fair in accordance with the law as expected. I also wish to point out that after the release of the names, there have been unfortunate and scandalous accusations against my counsel that we may have been compromised. This, of course, is a lot in terms of integrity. In this regard, I invite the authorities and I offer myself to be investigated by the authorities to ensure that, like Caesar's wife, we are all above suspicion. And I will not countenance any breach of the law for so long as I am the president of Law Society. Finally, I will echo the words of Honorable Chief Justice Maraga when he said that the greatness of a nation is judged by its respect for the Constitution, adherence to the rule of law, and fear of God. The same applies to the Law Society of Kenya. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Why is it that LSK wants to bend that law?
Well, as I pointed out, that mandatory requirement is something that I brought out to my council. Unfortunately, I was outvoted with a few of my council members in that regard. What happened on Monday was not a vetting exercise at all, because you cannot clear candidates, especially one candidate who had not signed the declaration form, had not provided health clearance, CID clearance, KRA clearance. And that candidate, like a cancer, has spoiled the entire process. That's why we must vet in accordance with the Constitution and what is expected under Article 53. So I apologize for the mistake that took place, but in the interest of justice, as the law always says, if an act is void from the outset, it must be set aside.
There are claims that LSK is divided. Would you confirm or deny?
Well, in every political game, there are always supporters of respective candidates. That is nothing to say that we are divided, but we must remain united in the pursuit of the Constitution and the rule of law. Like when I ran for president, of course, our members had different sides. I had my supporters, and there were supporters for my opponent. So I would not call that divided. But the rule of law cannot divide us. That is sacrosanct for us. It's a solemn oath we took.
And perhaps, are there political interference in terms of your operations?
None whatsoever. As long as I'm president of Law Society, you're aware that we've instituted several public interest litigation cases. In fact, I'm happy to report that even today, the task force on the conveyancing regulations will hand over the report. That task force was as a result of the Law Society going to court to uphold the rule of law. So there is no political interference whatsoever. That is why I've called this press conference to demonstrate that we must review an unjust decision that took place. And I expect that on Monday, God willing, we will unravel that bad decision.
Those supporting Professor Ojienda's candidature claim that the executive is trying to interfere in these elections because it has interest on who goes into the Judicial Service Commission, and that Professor Ojienda may not toe the line. So that is why there's a push to ensure that he's out.
The point with any candidate, of course, there will always be rumors and accusations and counter-accusations. My role and that of the council as president is to rise above such petty rumors. We are simply here to ensure that there's a fair process and there's due process. I'll give an example. In the last elections, 7 candidates were not cleared because they do not have crucial documents. In every election, candidates are vetted. And we must apply the same universal standards expected of the process. This is not a process about any candidate. This is only a process about fairness and respect for the law.
When is the election likely, the vetting likely to take place?
The vetting will take place on Monday. The elections of the JSC will take place on the 9th of May.
Just for clarification, why do you think it was they cleared like these two candidates, especially for Gathii Irungu, who presented his nomination papers out of the timeline? Because you can't just clear a candidate like that. There are questions as to why these two are cleared despite questions being raised.
As I said, this was a majority decision of some of the council. And with every council, we'll always have members of the council who have certain interests at heart. And my resolve, as I've made it time and time again clear, the only interest I have at heart is Section 4 of the Law Society of Kenya Act, which defines our jurisdiction and parameters of engagement. We must remain the voice of reason. We must remain the pulse of the nation to correct rights and wrongs. That is why we're lawyers. And that is why I have taken this step to do so. I know it may not find favor with some of my members, but to them I tell them, we became lawyers for the pursuit of legal and constitutional tenets. That is what must guide us. In the past, if you remember last year, there was even an attempt to have me removed as president of Law Society. And I'm sure that even this time round, some are burning the midnight oil lamp to fight my quest to uphold the rule of law. And I will not be intimidated by any such motions that may come at the annual general meeting, because I anticipate all these things. For me, as the president, I took an oath to ensure there's reform, and that path of reform is what shall guide us until my term ends.
Just one last one, and there are claims that there is a faction of lawyers affiliated to the LSK that have registered another unit calling it Chama cha Mawakili. Do you care to comment?
Well, all I can tell you is that as we speak, there's a court case pending. The Law Society has raised an objection. The court case, if I'm not mistaken, has been stayed pending the resolution before the acting registrar of businesses, who will determine whether the name should stay or not. So I cannot comment further on that because it's actually pending.
You talked about claims that some people might have been compromised, and your members have been mentioned in various allegations of corruption. Perhaps, how soon should authorities come to investigate the matter?
Well, as I said, I am ready to be investigated even today. The anti-corruption can come and verify if there's any untold or unfortunate or compromise of any actions taken by me. I am volunteering. I have no problem whatsoever. I have nothing to hide. So that's why, in all honesty, I invite the authorities to come and investigate me. As a leader, as I said, we must be beyond reproach. We must be, I can comfortably say that I sleep peacefully at night without any fear that someone will come knocking at 1 a.m. to pick me up. I think, unless there are any other questions, I hope I have satisfactorily answered all your questions. And I do thank you very much for coming to this meeting, as I felt it's important to set the record straight and to demonstrate to the public at large and to my members of the legal society that action shall be taken, and that on Monday we will meet and we shall resolve the matter to the satisfaction of the membership at large. Thank you very much, members of the press.